She stepped onto the court with the weight of prophecy on her shoulders. Rookie year, primetime debut, the future of an entire league, they said. But in just her third game, Sabrina Ionescu's future became a question mark, a routine drive, an awkward landing, and then silence. It wasn't just an ankle. It was the sound of momentum breaking. The girl who lit up college basketball with impossible stats and unshakable poise was suddenly limping off the court. Her season swallowed whole before it even began. You could feel the air leave the room. Fans, teammates, analysts, they weren't just stunned. They were scared, because what happens when a league next big thing gets cut down before the story even starts? The headlines were clinical. Grade 3 ankle sprain, out indefinitely, but what they didn't say was that it would take months before she could even walk without pain. They didn't show the isolation, the therapy sessions, the tears, the way confidence leaks out of you when your body fails at the one thing it was built to do. And through it all, the noise kept growing louder. Was she overhyped? Can she even survive in this league? She's not as athletic as the others. She was built for college, not this, for someone who had always let her game do the talking. The silence was deafening. You don't just recover from a high ankle sprain. You rebuild, not just the joint, but the rhythm, the balance, the instincts. And when the league moves on without you, when other stars rise while you rehab in the shadows, you start to wonder if your name will ever mean the same thing again. She watched as the WNBA evolved in her absence. New rivalries, new faces, social movements, bubble games. The story of the league kept moving and Sabrina was no longer part of it. That does something to you. It teaches you that being a face of the league is a label that can disappear in a blink. That injuries aren't just physical, they're psychological earthquakes. They shake the foundation of who you think you are. And for Sabrina, it meant starting over, from scratch, with nothing guaranteed. No camera crews, no speeches, just rehab bands and fluorescent gym lights. The moment she got hurt wasn't just a bad break. It was the beginning of the most critical battle of her career, proving that the fall wasn't the final chapter. She wasn't trying to be great anymore. She was trying to survive. Quietly, on one leg, away from the spotlight that used to follow her every move. But even in that darkness, something was building. A different kind of fire. Not the fire of headlines or highlight reels. The fire of someone who's been forgotten and plans to make everyone regret it. There's no music playing in a rehab room. Just the creak of resistance bands. The quiet buzz of fluorescent lights. The breath you hold when a muscle doesn't fire the way it should, and the silence that follows when you realize you have to start all over again. Sabrina Ionescu didn't just rehab an injury, she rehabbed an identity. The woman who once seemed invincible in Oregon green and yellow now found herself counting ankle rotations, taping resistance lines to mirrors, and documenting the smallest of wins just being able to jog. Again, her world, once measured in double-doubles and triple-doubles, had shrunk down to stopwatch and a training mat. She never said much during this period. That's not who she is. But those who saw her behind the scenes remember a different kind of intensity. Not the fire of a rising star, but the quiet kind. The kind you bottle up when no one is looking. It's the kind of fire that turns shame into fuel. Because make no mistake, there was shame. Not because she failed, but because the world expected her to fly. And instead, she fell. And whether anyone said it aloud or not, that fall became the subtext of every conversation. They drafted her first. They built the liberty around her. They gave her the keys before she'd even taken a professional shot, so when her body betrayed her, it felt like more than bad luck, it felt like she'd broken the promise. The league never waits, the media never waits, and the moment you're out of sight, you're out of the narrative. Other rookies made waves, other teams made playoff runs. Her name faded from headlines, replaced by newer, louder stars, so she did what most can't. She stayed quiet, she put her head down, and she let the grind speak. Every day in the gym was a negotiation with pain, with doubt, with her own fear that maybe she'd never be the same again, and every step forward was earned. Not given, no cameras, no applause, just her and the brutal arithmetic of physical therapy. Progress wasn't linear. Some days her ankle swelled, some nights the limp came back. Some mornings she questioned whether the player she used to be was ever real, or just a dream sold early, and yet there was no quitting. No public breakdown, no excuses, just the decision to keep going. Because when everything is taken from you, your game, your reputation, your spotlight, you find out what's underneath. For Sabrina, it wasn't flash, it was substance. She wasn't chasing the same dream anymore. She was chasing something sharper, more honest. Redemption, not for the world, for herself. When she finally returned to full contact training, she said nothing. No bold statements, no media campaign, just a hoodie, a headband, and eyes locked on the rim. She wasn't back to prove people wrong. She was back to prove she belonged. It didn't happen in a single game. There was no cinematic buzzer beater, no viral crossover, no headline that screamed she's back, because that's not how real comebacks happen, not the kind that matter. Sabrina Ionescu's return came quietly, one quarter at a time, a step-back three that barely touched net, a no-look pass that cut through a double team, a hesitation dribble that made defenders freeze, just like they used to. It wasn't dominance. Not yet. But it was control. She wasn't rushing anymore. She was dictating. And while the media kept their eyes on the league's flashiest scorers and drama-filled headlines, something was building in New York. Something patient. Something dangerous. Sabrina had gone from being a marketing machine plastered across billboards and WNBA launch videos to a player no one was quite sure how to talk about. Was she a bust? A future MVP? A role player? A cautionary tale? The answer was none of those. She was becoming something more rare, a player who didn't care about perception, only precision. The numbers told part of the story. Her efficiency climbed, turnovers dropped, shooting percentages ticked upward month by month. But stats couldn't capture the shift in energy when she touched the ball. The Liberty's tempo changed when it was in her hands, so did their belief. She wasn't a savior anymore. She was a surgeon. Every pass, every screen, every movement measured, intentional. She didn't need 30-point nights to make her presence known. She needed one possession, one moment, to tip the floor in her team's favor. And yet, she was still doubted. Critics said she lacked the explosiveness of other guards, that she wasn't physical enough, that she played too slow, too safe. But that's the thing about comebacks that aren't loud. They're methodical. She didn't need to be who she was before the injury. She was someone else now. Someone with fewer illusions. Someone who'd already lost it all and didn't flinch when it got hard again. The Liberty started to shift. Not dramatically but meaningfully. Close games became wins. Teammates leaned in during huddles. Trust deepened. Because when the moment mattered, the ball ended up in her hands and she knew what to do with it. Fans noticed too. They came not for the flash, but for the feel, the way she controlled space. The way she made the game look thoughtful instead of chaotic. There was a gravity to her play. One that couldn't be taught, only earned. She was no longer the next big thing. The label had burned off in the fire. What remained was something more dangerous. A player who no longer had anything to prove, only something to protect. Her game, her city, her belief that even after everything, she could still write her story. And she was just getting started. It wasn't just redemption, it was domination. When Sabrina stepped onto the All-Star stage, no one quite expected what would happen. The three-point contest was meant to be a spectacle, something fun, light, forgettable. But for her, it was a statement. She wasn't just competing. She was about to break it. Ball after ball, corner to arc. Her release didn't change. No hesitation, no wasted motion. Just the rhythmic sound of swish after swish until the crowd, even the ones who had doubted her, couldn't stay silent anymore. 37 points. She didn't just win. She rewrote the bar. The moment wasn't just historic, it was defiant. All those whispers that she wasn't athletic enough, fast enough, big enough gone. Not because she yelled back at them, but because she outworked and outshot everyone in front of her. And then came the skills challenge. Different format, more variables, more chances to crack under pressure. But again, she didn't flinch. Precision passes through tight windows, dribble sequences with zero wasted. Steps the final three from the top of the arc, perfect form, perfect result. There's a moment when a player stops chasing a comeback and starts owning a legacy. This was that moment. She had transformed in front of everyone, not through trash talk or marketing hype, but through something far more terrifying, technical perfection, because that's what scared opponents now. Not that she was flashy, but that she was surgical, that she'd found a rhythm so efficient, so unshakable, it looked machine-made. What made it even more powerful was how she carried it. No ego, no theatrics, just a quiet walk off the court and a look that said, I never left. You just stopped watching. The league took notice. Coaches rewrote defensive schemes. Teammates leaned in closer. Commentators who once buried her under the weight of expectations began to reconsider. Maybe she wasn't overhyped. Maybe she was just early, and now she was right on time. The three-point contest wasn't about the trophy. The skills challenge wasn't about proving she belonged. It was about reminding the league of something it forgot. That when you give a player like her time to heal, time to learn, time to evolve, you don't get the same version back. You get someone colder, smarter, sharper. You get a weapon. She wasn't the loudest player on the court. She didn't need to be. Her game spoke in numbers, in angles, in decisions that left defenders guessing and fans holding their breath. And in a league that's always searching for its next icon, she quietly stepped into the role without asking for permission, without demanding the spotlight, just by being undeniable. New York doesn't do patience. It doesn't wait for greatness. It demands it now, loudly, and without apology. And for the first time in a long time, the city had a reason to believe again. The Liberty were no longer a rebuilding project. They were contenders. Names like Brina Stewart, Jonquel Jones, and Benny Delaney drew headlines. But deep in the bones of the roster, in the cadence of their offense, in the pulse of the game, there was one constant. Sabrina, she wasn't the loudest. She wasn't the flashiest. But every possession bent around her decisions. Every run began with her vision. And every late-game moment seemed to slow down when the ball was in her hands. That's pressure. Not the kind you ask for, the kind you earn. New York is a city of ghosts. Every athlete walks in the shadow of someone else, some legend, some icon, some myth built on championships and heartbreak. Sabrina wasn't trying to be anyone else, but she was still expected to deliver all the same. Not just wins, moments. The kind fans remember. The kind that rewrite expectations. The kind that make you lean forward and say, "Did you see that?" And quietly, she started giving them those moments. A dagger three in front of a roaring Barclays crowd. A game-sealing steal in transition. A no-look dish that only a true student of the game could even attempt. But with every moment, the weight grew heavier, not from critics but from belief, because now the fans believed, the franchise believed, the city, for once, believed. That's the paradox of greatness. You spend years clawing your way back into the spotlight, only to find out it burns hotter than ever. She never said it aloud, but you could feel it in her body language. The way she stared down the floor in dead ball moments. The way she stayed late after practice. The way she guarded her teammates' energy like it was currency. She wasn't just playing point guard. She was staring an empire that hadn't been built yet. The pressure didn't crack her. It focused her. It made her game tighter, cleaner, meaner. But pressure is also lonely, because when the team loses, the silence hits her locker first. When the shots don't fall, the headlines spell her name. And when expectations rise, there's nowhere left to hide. That's the reality of carrying a city's hope not as a savior, but as a symbol. And symbols don't get to rest. She didn't complain. She didn't ask for help. She just showed up, game after game, with tape around her ankle and eyes locked on the rim, because she knew the truth. The real legacy isn't in trophies, it's in responsibility. And Sabrina had taken hers personally. Most athletes get to grow in silence. They stumble in college gyms, in off-season workouts, in preseason scrimmages no one remembers. Their mistakes are private. Their evolution, invisible. Sabrina never had that luxury. From the moment she entered the league, every move came with a camera. Every missed shot, every win, every limp, it all lived in public. So when the injury happened, it wasn't just her body that broke. It was the illusion of control. And when she came back, she didn't just have to rebuild her game, she had to rebuild her identity while millions watched. That changes you. You stop playing for applause. You stop chasing headlines. And somewhere in the blur of expectations and opinions, you start asking the hardest question. Who am I when no one's cheering? In the early days, the answer was unclear. She was supposed to be the face, the leader, the next big thing. But what happens when the hype dies? When the spotlight moves, when the world forgets? Most disappear. Sabrina didn't. She adapted. The version of her we see now, composed, calculated, ruthless, isn't the same player who walked into the league with college records and media campaigns behind her. That player was fueled by momentum. This one is fueled by memory. Memory of what it felt like to be irrelevant. Memory of what it cost to climb back. Memory of what they said when they thought she was done. And it's that memory that makes her dangerous, because now she doesn't flinch. Not when the crowd gets quiet. Not when the shot clock runs low. Not when the whole season tilts on a single play. She's seen worse. She's felt worse. She's been broken and survived it. And that survival, that inner grit, now defines everything she does. She smiles less, celebrates less, But every cut, every pass, every shot, there's clarity in it. Like someone who's no longer trying to impress anyone, just trying to win. That is the part no one teaches you. How to lose everything and still find a reason to care. Because that's what greatness really is, not the perfect stat lines or the highlight reels. It's the ability to keep showing up when nobody's watching and to rise again, knowing the fall might come back. She doesn't talk about the pressure. She doesn't need to. You can see it in the way she plays. Quiet, composed, deadly. This isn't a comeback anymore. It's a warning. She's not chasing anyone. She's not trying to be next. She's already here, and she's not leaving.